Hello, Frizzle Fools! So let it be known that I did try to review books 5 through 10, but I was so distracted by my thoughts about this, book 11, that it was total crap. It was not good video. My very intense thoughts on book 11 of the Sandman Slim series, Ballistic Kiss. My feelings on the Sandman Slim series, books 1 through 10, is overwhelmingly positive. I adore these books. I love their sarcastic and dark tone. I love the characters. I love the wacky settings and plots. It's just my jam. I love the layers of character introspection and how each plot seems to give it just like another level of depth, which is why book 11 was so incredibly disappointing, because after 10 books of very tight theming, a very tight character development, it felt like book 11 was just a slow crash of all my expectations, for which I will now roll out to you. Our main character, Stark, has been going on a journey for many books now of trying to be more like a regular human, because he's kind of like a monster due to all of his time in hell and, all those rough edges he acquired there. But he's working on being a more kind and gentle person. He's not very good at this, but he is trying, and that's been slowly his arc. Got it? That's where he's at right now. And this is especially difficult for him right now because he's in a very precarious situation with most of his friendships, where he was gone for a while, and then when he came back, all of his friends were like, things were kind of better when you were kind of dead. So awkwardness everywhere. And when I fell in love with this book, yes, I did fall in love before it broke my heart, mark my words there, was when Stark is preparing for a party, a little movie watch night that he's throwing for his friends, and he has to go to the store to buy snacks. And this is outside of his comfort zone. He's not used to going to the store, being a regular human being, buying things. He messes up, he buys all the wrong things, he has a panic attack, he freaks out the workers, he freaks out the security guards. He has to run out there in a panic. And why I love this scene is I felt like it set up such a wonderful bit of action. Usually action, especially in these books, is like the apocalyptic sort. But here we are in this novel where it's setting up the biggest hurdle for him to accomplish, the biggest thing for him to fight is his own anxiety of being a regular human in regular human spaces and places. And this was a breath of fresh air. I adored it. It was another level of character introspection, and I was down. Because what I adore about this series isn't the life or death action. It's how that action informs and changes our main character. So you can guess, now that you know why I loved this book, how it let me down. But first, how it brought me up. So in this book, Stark acquires a kind of new girlfriend thing, Janet. Something that I've seen people complaining about Janet on the internet is that they are non-binary. And people think that this is kind of just like shoehorned in there. But when it first happened, when Janet came out and was like, hey, I don't identify as a girl, I was thinking, this is kind of brilliant, because it ties in with the larger theme of the book of Stark having to adjust back to human culture. He was gone for a decade, and he has never heard of the concept of non-binary. So as Stark is building a relationship with his new partner, Janet, it is also him, kind of literally, kind of metaphorically, building a relationship with the world as it now is, with him becoming more of a person. So it all ties back together, right? At least when Janet was serving this purpose in the narrative, which they did not continue to do. And that's when it got annoying. But then it is revealed that Janet is part of a cult that goes on suicide adventure missions because they're a thrill seeker, and this is their whole identity, kind of. And I can imagine a way that this could have been done well, but this wasn't done well. Because if Janet is a symbol of the regular human world, and then suddenly is revealed to be part of a crazy death cult, that kind of breaks your symbol of the normal world that Stark is trying to adapt to. Furthermore, it colors Janet's motivations completely differently. Because before this revelation, Janet being into Stark was like a good step for Stark and a good sign of him becoming more of a person that can sustain a normal relationship. Stark's ability to just kind of go on a normal date with Janet is a huge improvement from his previous inability, and all of his dates were like fighting bad guys instead. But then if Janet's motivations is thrill-seeking now, then is Janet really pursuing Stark because they like Stark? Or is Janet pursuing Stark because Janet recognizes that Stark is bad at being a regular human and is attracted to that because they're looking for death thrills? So Janet is looking for the type of dates where they go and fight evil zombies together. And so Stark bonding with Janet is bonding with more crazy world. Janet is bad for Stark. Janet is the opposite of the direction that Stark's character arc was moving in. And to me, this is only further reinforced by every time that Stark tries to tell Janet, you should quit that death cult you're in. Janet manipulates him. Janet manipulates his feelings for them. And is just such a snake. And even in the end, when Janet does officially leave the cult, she only does it because they are now actively trying to murder her, which I do not think constitutes character development. Even the one selfless act that Janet performs in this narrative, which is marrying Brigitte so she can get a green card, felt like complete emotional manipulation to me. Like Janet was only doing this to get further ingrained into the friend group because they were seeking for that crazy zombie hunter's thrills. Because nothing up to that point in Janet's character had convinced me that Janet was the type of character that would actually do something as selfless as marrying a stranger. It felt more like to me, like Janet heard that Brigitte was a crazy zombie hunter expert and wanted to attach themselves to that. Again, the thrill-seeking behavior. So when the book ended, and Janet and Stark are still a couple, and this is like framed as a happy ending. Like this is framed as if Stark has achieved something in his goal to become a better human. And to me, it felt like the exact opposite. It felt like this was the tragic ending. It felt like Stark had gone backwards, like he had gotten into a terrible manipulative relationship. It just zapped any of my desire to read the next book in the series, which is so sad because I absolutely adore this series. I would love to reread books 1 through 10, and we can even take a step back here and ask ourselves, well, what about Stark's other journeys in this book? One of which is Stark trying to figure out how to interact with friends. He wants to be pushy and go against his friends' wishes and do things for their own good, even if he's kidnapping them or shoving potions down their throat in the process. But the normal, considerate, friendly human thing to do would be to not do that and respect your friends' boundaries. And yet, at the end of this book, the lesson he learns is that sometimes you do need to steamroll your friends' boundaries. And I agree that maybe sometimes, if your friend is not acting rationally and is doing something that is terrible for them, it might be a good time to step in and steamroll your friend's boundaries. But again, it feels like Stark backtracking on the lessons that it was set up for him to learn. Like the book gave us the quest that Stark must complete. And then by the end of the book, Stark had regressed and the book was like, good job, you did it! What? That's not how narrative structure works. Even the relationship that was in a mess at the beginning between Candy and Stark is still in pretty much the same mess by the end of the book. It's still, will they, won't they, maybe, maybe not. And we can even talk about the one big change that did happen in this book that really ended Vidoc's arc, which was Vidoc dying. The entire book series, Vidoc has wanted to die. He accidentally became an immortal, and the entire book series he's been trying to reverse this. But one of the major themes of this book series is also deciding that you want to live. Stark just went through this in book 10, where he decided to live even though his friends didn't really want him to at that point. Even though he could have just gone to the afterlife and maybe had a better life there. But he decided to live because there's value in life. And Vidoc has also been going through this journey as he bonds with Allegra. And then in this book, he done get murdered by a magical dagger. I refuse to believe that Vidoc hadn't tried something like a magical dagger before in all of his efforts to find a way to die. So one, this doesn't really make sense with the logical premise of Vidoc's quest. If it was as simple as getting a magical dagger, Vidoc would have died decades ago. But it's also totally against the thematic potential here of Vidoc choosing to live and changing his mind, of him finding what he actually needs is to live a fulfilling life with his wonderful girlfriend Allegra, and giving up on his toxic want of wanting to die, and realizing that there is inherent value to life. You know, like the journey that Stark's also going on, the theme of the book series. And it is because all of these reasons that the longer I think about this book, the longer it sits with me, the more I kind of hate it. Yeah, It's just as well written, prose-wise, whatever, as the previous books. But the magic of the previous books that I loved so much, the character introspection and journeys tying in with themes and the action, that just fell flat for me in this book. Especially past the second half when we learned Janet's true double life and motivations. The way that this book brought the series off the rails was by taking all of those carefully constructed ideas and character growth and development and throwing them out. And back when I had only finished book 9 and was still bright-eyed bushy-tailed, I designed a Sandman Slim t-shirt, which I am quite proud of. Please go check out my store, there's a link in the description below. And what did you think of this book? If you made it to the end of the video, comment with a donut emoji, and thank you for watching.